Chapter 65. Battle. The clumsiness that Parker had felt was gone. As he followed the shaman, he felt lighter and stronger than he had ever been. The rancid odor surrounding the cave had no effect on him. His vision became crystal clear and sharp. Even in the dim light, he saw everything clearly and precisely. Around a lava outcropping, through a clump of bushes they went. They walked between two pine trees that leaned up the slope. Ahead, Parker could see a yellow spread of smoke rolling down the slope. As they approached the last line of trees, the shaman stepped to the side. 5 yards away in a clearing stood a man highlighted against a swirling, faint yellow cloud. The man's head was turning side to side. As the man scanned back to them again, he stopped. He looked straight at Parker. "It is Paase," the shaman said. Paase crouched and raised both arms. Sharp claws sprung from his fingers and feet. His shoulders widened, his neck swelled, and his sharply defined muscles bulged. He coiled deep and uncoiled. On all fours, he sprinted down the slope. Parker was startled at the speed. He turned, leaned to the side, and started to raise his hands. Pasarort. Parker felt a jolt that turned him sideways. He felt a cold line on his right side, just under the ribs. He looked down. A 5-inch shallow cut had opened. Paase had hit him harder and quicker than Parker had expected. His shoulder struck from behind. Air rushed past him. He felt a trickle down his back. Focus. Draw strength from the claws. Listen, then strike, the shaman yelled. Parker raised the claws and squeezed. They made a grinding sound as they opened and closed. He squeezed again as he jerked his head, trying to find from what direction Paase would strike. Paase rushed past him, swiped at Parker, slicing Parker's forearm. "Fight," the shaman bellowed. "Fight, or you will die. Fight, or many people will die because you have failed. Don't stand here like a crash dummy. Move. Protect yourself. Get your hands up and start swinging." He moved his arms in varying paths in front and to the side, opening and closing the claws with each motion. He heard a crunch. He raised his left arm toward the sound, crouched, and ready to spring. To his right came the quiet sound of paw pads on the ground. Parker lurched behind a tree. The bark shattered next to his head. He turned quickly and watched Paase scamper like a panther into the bushes. He heard the crunch of gravel. He ducked and rolled, sprung up again, and watched Paase vanish into the blanket of rain. Parker rose and ran behind a high lava rock. The sound of paws dashing out of the dark turned Parker's head. Paase slid to a stop. Then he sprinted into the dark again. Parker looked up. The side of the rock was nearly straight up. He took a claw and dragged it down the rock. It stopped and held firm. He stretched the other claw up and found a hold. Hand over hand, he climbed up the rock. He stood on the top of the rock so that Paase could see him. He heard the paws again. This time they pounded harder and faster. Parker peered into the pelting rain. A hunched dark beast was moving rapidly toward him on all fours. Just as it got to the rock, it leaped at Parker. Parker raised his arms and fell back on the top of the rock. He squeezed the claws open. As Paase was hurtling over, Parker swiped his arms down. When he felt his arms jerk, he released the pressure and let the claws close. He heard a tearing sound and felt vibrations as the claws tore into Paase. A heavy weight fell on top of Parker. Then Paase pushed himself up to his knees as he straddled Parker. Against the distant moon, Parker saw the head and shoulders of what looked like a massive beast. Parker stretched his arms out, crossed them over each other, squeezed the claws open, and reaching up, he drove them into Paase. He let the claws clamp closed. He pulled his arms apart. For a split second, the claws stopped, then they rapidly opened, tearing Paase's chest open. Blood, chunks of flesh, and entrails flowed onto Parker. The beast stood, looked down, and raised an arm. Parker rolled off the rock, landed hard, and scrambled to his feet. The beast leaped, landed 6 feet away, raised himself on one knee, and rested one bloody paw on the ground. Parker ran at him and howled. Paase turned toward the sound, and Parker drove a claw into the side of its head and pulled the claw toward the beast's face. The side of the face slid off in strips. Paase kneeled with his head down, looking at the strips of flesh. Parker volkt toward Pasa. Paase raised its head. Parker put the claw under Paase's chin and yanked upward. The jaw stretched and then separated from Paase's head. Paase leaned and fell to his side. Parker hovered over him. He put a foot on its neck and swung the claw across its head. The head jerked from the neck and rolled 6 feet away and onto its side. Now let's see if Tapalo can raise you from the dead. Paase's body softened, lost form, and melted into the earth like steaming wax. The head turned and rolled upright onto the stub of the neck. Paase's eyes looked dead into Parker's, and a confused look crossed Paase's face as if he could not fathom his defeat. As his expression faded, the earth under the head slid down, forming a conical hole into which the head disappeared. As the earth closed back up, the sharp sound of boulders slamming together escaped from the hole. Oh shit. Parker wondered if Paase was permanently dead. Then he remembered, spirits don't die. Tapalo could still raise him from the dead, but not this time. If Parker could send Tapalo back down into the fiery river of lava. Chapter 66. Fight or die. You must be quicker, more decisive. I must be insane too, Parker muttered, hoping to awake from his living nightmare. A wish he knew to be futile, but would not let go of. He didn't know what he was going to face, what kinds of powers Tapalo had, and most of all, if it took this much to defeat Paase, what would it take to defeat Tapalo? It didn't seem to him that courage and a pure heart were lethal enough weapons. As if the shaman felt Parker's distress, he said, "There is no way to prepare you any more now, but I can tell you this. He cannot be killed." Great. So, tell me why I'm doing this, or am I just committing suicide? He can be defeated. You have taken the first step. You have defeated Paase. Parker regretfully added, and the only disciple here is Lindy? Yes. Top Elo already possesses her. So, this is when she is most dangerous. But this is when he is vulnerable. This is when he can be defeated. So, she's going to try to kill me? Yes. So I have to stop her? You will have to do more than that. No, you can't mean. Yes. You will have to kill her. I can't. Not that. If you enter the cavern and Tapilo senses that you are not willing to kill her, you will die. Paase will be resurrected. The slaughtering will continue, and the Sitko warriors will rise. What they will do, the world has never seen before. They will be the hand of Tapilo's vengeance on all humans. But to kill her, she is not who she was. She is the instrument of Tapilo's will, his power. If you kill her and throw her into the fiery pool while Tapilo has taken over her body and mind, he will be defeated. If you can do that, you might live. If you do not do that, there is only one other way to defeat Tapilo. You must overcome the molten lava and his fiery wings. Then you have to drive Kolu's claw into his chest, tear it open, and drag him into the pool where the fires will consume you. But if I can do it, she will live and be set free from him. The shaman became angry. It is not her. It has not really been her for a long time. It will never be her again. You have to kill her. This is what you must do. She cannot be redeemed. It's either her or all of humankind. Parker looked hard at the shaman. Parker had loved this woman, and he wondered if he still loved her. She had said that she loved him, but now he only sensed hate from her. He wondered if there was still a spark of humanity left in her, a part that might come back and rid her of Tapilo's control. As if the shaman heard his thoughts, he continued, "She is beyond hope. Here in Tapilo's cavern, he will own her body and soul. She will be the vessel of his dark power. She has been a part of the slaughter of many innocent people. If there were any humanity in her, she would not have stood by and watched the slaughtering." The shaman walked past Parker. A few yards beyond him, he turned and solemnly said, "You must be ready. Regardless of what you see, you must not hesitate. Do not weaken your resolve." The shaman turned again and walked up the slope. Parker looked down the hill. He could see the tip of Spirit Lake glistening in the moonlight. The ghostly faces of slaughtered victims filled his mind. He saw the world as it would become, the streets strewn with the carnage left by the Sitko-possessed, dark warriors and disciples. The smell of decay and rotting corpses filled his senses. The screams of children, the cries of infants, pierced him. The horror shuddered him. Their suffering buckled his knees. He felt their misery and despair. He could not let this happen. It had to be stopped here and now. And somehow, he had to find the resolve to do it. Parker stiffened his back and with large strides moved to the shaman's side. Together, they walked up to the dead bushes. As the shaman walked into them, they bent away from him, snapped off, and disappeared in a cloud of yellow dust. The shaman walked into the dark opening. Parker followed. Chapter 67. The Dark Bird's Lair. When they got to the widening part of the tunnel, Parker heard a roar rush up the tunnel. It exploded in his ears. Another roar followed, trailed by a horrific scream. Parker jerked to a stop. It must be Lindy. Suddenly, he felt as if a frozen spike had been driven through his heart. He grabbed his chest and bent to his knees. His first thought was that Toppy Lowe had killed her. He might be torturing her, but she was his servant. Maybe she's trying to trick me to get me to rush ahead recklessly. She can't be trusted. She can't be trusted. The shaman looked back at Parker. He is trying to weaken you. You must be strong. If you show hate for her, he will use it to defeat you. If you show love for her, he will use it to defeat you. The shaman pulled Parker up. With wails echoing off the walls of the tunnel, they moved deeper. As the tunnel widened into the lava-lit chamber, the shaman stepped to the side. Parker's eyes followed him. He saw a petroglyph on the wall next to the shaman. Then he saw another and another. He scanned the chamber. The symbols covered the walls. They glowed bright orange and vibrated. They began to move. He seemed to be mesmerized by the motion. The shaman shook him. Focus. This is a diversion. He is trying to distract and bewitch you. The shaman slapped him. Parker shook his head. A shrill scream of a woman caught Parker's attention. Lindy. He turned toward the pool. An image flashed across his mind. Lindy burning in the pool of churning lava. No one there. The center of the pool began to darken. A black oval appeared on the surface of the glowing pool. The oval formed a bubble, which expanded into a dome. It rose and created a skull with a sharply hooked beak. The skull glowed, expelling tiny flares of molten lava. The eyes were deep black holes with fiery rims. A gigantic black bird began to emerge from a pool. The tips of black wings thrust out of the pool and stretched to the top of the dome. Spreading wide, they nearly touched the cavern's sides. The bones in the wings burst into flames, burning holes through the black wings. The holes filled and burned away again. A round pedestal under him pushed him to the surface. The final thrust of the pedestal to the surface brought the giant, dark bird in full form. Perched on the round pedestal, his talons draped over the edge. Parker followed the rise of the beast until the head nearly touched the top of the domed cavern. Horrified, Parker rapidly stepped back several paces. He could feel the heat from the massive bird as it radiated across his skin. He sensed it crawling over his body, searching for a way to invade him. Unshakable panic enveloped him. He fought, but the horror drove to the very depths of his spirit, penetrating to the very heart of who he thought he was. He could feel his anxiety eviscerating his strength, courage, and resolve. He desperately wanted to run, but as the desire became unbearable, a power radiated from the claws and fortified his willpower. With renewed determination, he faced the massive bird. The blazing skeleton of the bird's breast encased a black sludge of swirling, terrified faces that coursed down the legs and dripped face by face from the bird's long serrated talons, over the edge of the pedestal and into the pool. From each drop, the faces turned into steam, rose into the air, and were pulled into Toppy Lowe's chest. The faces melded into a swirling black mass, and the perpetual cycle continued. Parker felt the tens of thousands of evil souls collected over thousands of years, each a victim that Toppy Lowe had demanded. His body became their prison. Their dark hate became his power. As Parker tightened his grip on the claws, Another bolt of Kolu's spirit surged through the claws up his arms, across his shoulders, and spread down through his body. With it came a burst of courage and determination. He would fight. He could fight. Parker watched the tips of the wings reach up, then shot out away from its body, stretching to the edges of the chamber. The wings looped out as if they were encircling a wide object. The ends of the wings moved toward each other, as if they were arms trying to close a circle. The dark bird's wings overlapped for an instant before they rose slightly and thunderously drove its fiery wings into the ground a short distance from the edge of the churning pool. The entire cavern rumbled. The wings wrapped around, forming a kind of blazing cocoon in front of it. The bird's head, bursting with flaming spikes, lurched forward and down, its flaring eyes staring directly at Parker. Parker held fast, squeezing the claws open and letting them close with a grinding, clattering sound and a sudden click. The beast spread his molten lava-infused wings, leaned back, exposing the sludge of swirling faces in his chest. As his massive black skeleton of fiery lava bones sunk into the molten pool, a bright red and orange blaze flashed across the entire surface of the pool and vanished into a churning, dark, dissipating cloud. Chapter 68. Power, Love, Hate, Revenge. Left in the wake of his flaming immersion into the pool, a naked woman kneeled with her head down. She curled into a fetal position. Her hair was soaked with blood that dripped on her thighs. Several cuts had opened the skin on her arms. They used bloody pus. The tips of her fingers were raw, bleeding flesh. Blood-filled, bursting blisters dotted her body. She raised her head slightly, but it was enough for Parker to know. Lindy. Although he knew that she had gone into the chamber, he was still startled to see her tortured and bloody body. This isn't real. It can't be. He thrust his hands forward, trying to push the image away, but the vision was too strong, too penetrating. It was Lindy. Parker was struck with overwhelming pity. He could feel his eyes blurring with tears. He began to tremble. He turned to the shaman. I thought you said that Tapalo could not do this, that he could only infuse her with his will. He can't. This is not his doing. Parker swung his gaze back to Lindy. She looked as if she were bleeding to death. He moved closer to her. Lindy, who did this to you? She said nothing. He moved closer. Lindy. She lifted her head higher and looked directly into Parker's eyes. Parker stopped suddenly and took a step back. Oh my God, what has he done to you? Across Lindy's face was the same bloody, crusted pattern that Spooky had created on himself, but with one addition. Her eyelids had been removed. The horror froze Parker. Lindy reached out her hand. Please help me. Please. The things he did to me. I can't take it anymore. Help me. I love you so much. I told him I would not hurt you, and he punished me. Take me away from here. I have always loved you. I gave up my child for you. Save me. Get me out of here before he returns. Her head dropped as her hand reached out more. Blood dripped from the fingertips. Parker dropped the claws, took 3 strides, and grabbed her hand. I'm here, Lindy. I'm here. The blood on her hand was sticky, clinging to his hand. The shaman grabbed Parker's shoulder and spun him around. Parker held on to her hand tightly. What you are seeing is not really her. The shaman pointed over Parker's shoulder. Parker turned back to Lindy. She was standing, her head tilted to the side. She had a blood-dripping smile of cracked, rotted black teeth. Maggots were swarming in the slits in her arms. Horrified, Parker tried to shake his hand from hers. Her vice-like grip tightened on his fingers, jamming them together. He could feel his bones grinding. He looked back at the claws. They were out of reach. He had failed to follow the shaman's command. He had fallen victim to his mercy for her, and he knew that he might pay for it with his life. Parker pulled harder. The maggots crawled onto his arm. He could feel their tiny bites. He grabbed her wrist with his other hand and pulled, separating it from his arm. He let go of her wrist and shook his arm. All but 2 maggots fell off. They turned red with his blood. He shook again, harder. They fell off. She grabbed him again and began to pull him toward the pool. He tried to wrench himself free. She held on to him. He tried to move away from the pool by dragging her. His feet could not get a grip on the bloody dirt. He felt sludge crawling between his toes. She pulled him to within a few feet of the blazing pool. The heat was singeing his skin. He closed his eyes and prepared to die. Suddenly, he heard a powerful voice next to him. "It's only death." Parker looked for the shaman. He was still standing near the chamber entrance. The voice wasn't the shaman's. "Kolus?" Parker calmed. He felt peaceful. His mind emptied. Death had lost its power. It no longer had a hold on him. It was no longer frightening. What would happen to the world was paramount in his mind now. His life, her life, meant nothing. Putting the slaughtering beast to rest was all that mattered. This life that he desperately had wanted to hold on to melted into a passing moment in time. What he did now, at this moment, would be the true measure of the value of his life. He opened his eyes and locked them on Lindy's. Whatever she saw in his eyes at that moment made her let go of his hand. She backed away to the edge of the pool. Fear-powered hate covered her face. She lunged, striking at him. He sidestepped the blow. She swung again and again, missing each time. She turned back to the pool and reached down. Behind her, Topilo rose rapidly from the pool. His large hooked beak opened. An ear-piercing screech and foul stench rushed out. As Lindy rose and whirled back to Parker, the shotgun that she had taken from the trunk was in her hands. On the ground behind her were the shotgun shells. She stuck the double-barrel shotgun into his chest. Parker grabbed the barrel and pulled it up and to the side. A shot exploded into the churning petroglyphs on the ceiling. Topelo screeched again. His eyes flamed red. His wings reached to the ceiling and then drove down into the ground around Lindy. The shotgun shells bounced as the ground shook. The shaking dropped Parker to his knees. The barrel of the gun came down and pointed at his head. He pushed it away with his forearm, wrapped his arm around the barrel, and pulled. Lindy jerked. Topelo screeched. As if the screech infused her with power, Lindy held firm and lifted Parker off the ground. Topelo screeched again. Lindy's power surged again, and she slung Parker across the room. She looked at the shotgun as if it had failed her and disdainfully hurled it into the molten pool. With long strides, Lindy moved quickly toward Parker. "The claws. Get the claws and fight," the shaman said. "Use their power." Parker was only able to get to a kneeling position with one knee and one foot on the ground before Lindy was driving her fist toward his head. Parker ducked. Her fist glanced off the top of his head and smashed into the wall, spraying rock. Maggots flew from her arm and splattered the wall. Topelo screeched again. Parker rolled away as Lindy pulled her fist from the wall, leaving a foot-wide indentation. Parker rose to his feet. Lindy rushed at him. Her arms came at him like jackhammers. The first fist missed. The second hit his left shoulder and stunned him. The third hit squarely on his right rib cage. The fourth hit his sternum and drove him against the wall. He slid down and sat. She reached her hands toward the ceiling. Symbols sprung onto her hands, spiraled up and down from her fingers to her shoulders. She looked up to the ceiling and, with the voice of Topelo, she screeched wildly. Parker sprung to his feet and darted across the room. A blow from behind sent him sliding face first along the ground. He rolled over. A fist came down on his sternum again. He felt a crack. Lindy came closer, looked at the ceiling, and raised both fists high over her head. Parker raised his shoulder to roll, like hot spikes being driven into his chest. A surge of pain from his sternum filled him. He stopped. The two fists came down hard on his chest again. Parker howled as the pain shuddered him. Her arms rose again. He rolled, howling again. The fists shattered the ground where his head had been. Screaming with pain, he pushed himself to his hands and knees. His head was hit. It jerked up, and he found himself sliding along the ground on his back. He gritted his teeth and clenched his jaw as tightly as he could. Lindy was standing 20 feet away. She smiled a rotted, bloody smile and laughed. Blood bubbles burst from her mouth as the hideous sound spilled out. She looked at him and cocked her head side to side, as if she were trying to understand why this tiny, fragile creature was still alive. She moved slowly toward him as if savoring the moment. Again, the shaman yelled, "Use the claws. Use their power." Parker scanned the room. To his right, a body's length away in the dust, lay Kolu's claws. He bellowed in pain as he rolled over and scrambled on all fours to the claws. He grabbed them. The ground shook with each hastening stride that Lindy made. A kick hit him in the right rib cage. He heard a crack. He tumbled over several times, dropping the claws. He looked up. A fist came down, bringing momentary darkness behind it.